All right, guys, it's Mo, and I'm here unleashed on the internet. Pray for us all now in the hour of Mo. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the forensic interview of Leteshia Stauch. Honestly, when this was presented in court, it was just very confusing. They recorded on a potato, and she had that lovely Kubrick angle, so doing a lot for the sanity there. She it just and the way she just jumps from subject to subject within a even a breath was so terribly difficult to kind of keep up with that I really wanted to take notes to try to understand myself. And then I figured I would try to do a video and go over the notes that I have. I tried to include insights that we've learned from the trial to try to add to the notes that I have, and then kind of my personal insights, so it doesn't strictly stay just bullet point notes. I do add my opinion. I have a lot of them, and I figured this would be the best to kind of really read Leteshia for just absolutely the monster she is sometimes. This woman is, I wouldn't even say human, but that's just my opinion. Allegedly, don't come for me. Look, I read her for filth because I am tired of her antics. We've had to sit for nearly 3 weeks watching her disrespect the court, disrespect witnesses, and honestly, this just having to make the families listen to the autopsy report is enough for me to hate her. That video is enough for me to be done and hope that she gets catapulted into the sun for her behavior. I'm kind of okay with catapult into the sun, and or if we can possibly make her and Sarah Boone be pen pals and roommates forever. Those two are just a match made in hell. But kind of enough of that rambling and ranting. Let's get into the notes. Now, before we even get into the notes of the actual interview, I did want to put up some points that the state made very clear before going over this clip. Um, they make clear with the forensic psychologist or the psychologist that in the DSM-5, these forensic interviews, you have to always be looking at what is the motive. What are people getting out of what they're saying? Usually these are defendants who want to go. But the state is really wanting to make clear that people have motives in these particular interviews, and the forensic psychologist does state that you have to be very aware that people are trying to either exaggerate their symptoms or even downplay in some cases their symptoms. So that is one thing that is really hammered home at this time. It was also made clear by the psychiatrist that they do not throw out diagnoses during these particular interviews. They don't want to again influence the defendants in any way, and so if this is strictly a competency thing, they're not planning on treating or coming up with a care plan for any of these people, so they stay away from that. She did make clear that it is not standard practice, nor has she ever had attorneys from either side in the room when she's interviewing someone for a forensic style interview, um, because the lawyers or anyone being in the interview could lead to undue influence. Now, I believe this was brought up, but don't quote me, that the defense was in the room with Leteshia when the expert witness was doing this sort of interview with her. I don't know the full extent of what the expert did with her, but I believe it was implied that the defense was in the room with her. So I do believe that the state wanted to make the point that there could be influence at that. So that was what happened before we went into the clip. And the clip is an hour and 45 minutes, and it feels like 8 hours and 170 minutes. It really just was so long and so involved. And she makes a statement and contradicts it in the very next sentence. She's very loose with her timeline until she's not. And she'll say something and then change her mind in the very next second. So it is, I am shocked that we got all the information, good or bad, that we were able to from Friday, because it's almost a defense mechanism that you zone out if you are not, or at least I zoned out if I wasn't taking conscious notes. So, first, my impressions of T before we even start the interview. She is in an orange jumpsuit. Orange is wonderful on her. She should stay in it for the rest of her life. She is in a belt restraint. Let me look this down, move this down a little bit. She's in a belt restraint. Um, and as a person that talks with my hands, I did notice a slight, and I mean a very slight, sort of hesitation on some of the times where she's trying to use sort of exaggerated believe me gestures. Because she couldn't do them, there was kind of a slight halt in her voice. But again, if you weren't paying attention to it or you don't talk to your hands or with your hands, I don't think you would have noticed it. She is still rocking the greasy, grungy hair. I don't know if they don't have soap in the jails or this is just her normal thing, because I think her hair was greasy when she had her first police interview. So I don't know if being depressed makes her just not want to brush or wash her hair. I don't know. But the woman's never seen a bottle of shampoo. Then the male interviewer asks the question that he wishes he never had. It's an open-ended question, and he basically says, tell us about the events that led to Gannon's death and kind of your feelings and things that you were noticing leading up to it. T kind of sits back at this point and then kind of leans forward and asks, well, what time are you asking about? Um, and again, the interviewers kind of tell her, I believe it's the male who answers her, tell us, according to you, when you feel like this event started. T immediately starts in on people are gonna kill her, people are gonna rape her because of this prior car accident. They have been stalking her, they have been riding around in black cars. They are going to get her. Someone is out to get her. And this, she has turned up victim to 11 on this point. She claims that, she has tried to investigate these people and she cannot find them. She says that kind of noticing these black cars and noticing the increased surveillance on her started on the 9th or 10th of January. Okay, T. Okay. Then she skips to the January 16th cruise with Al. Oh my God, can you imagine being stuck in the middle of the ocean with this woman? I'm just saying that there would have been a shark attack if I was there. Oh, what happened to T? Allegedly and on Minecraft. Um, I do note here that she left the children with a babysitter while they went on a cruise. Harley made a point to say that she did not know this babysitter and that it was odd. Now, Harley didn't kind of dig into that as to whether it was odd because Tisha usually picked babysitters that they knew, or if Harley thought it was odd because I'm 17, I can watch these kids. Why do I need a babysitter? I've graduated high school. Again, it wasn't kind of dug into, but I did want to note that Harley really did make a point to say it was odd. Then once T and Al get off the airplane and to the port where they're going to meet the cruise thing, I guess. The airport has lost her luggage. Now, in T's mind, this totally means that someone in the mob connection has shenaniganized her things. They know where she is, and she claims that due to this mob involvement or these shady people involvement, she and Al switched the entirety of their cruise, destinations, itineraries on the spot. I'm going to go ahead and say that despite never being on a cruise, I'm pretty sure you can't just cancel it and change it. Um, Al never said anything, and I feel like if he was on the stand and they had to do all of this giant BS and pain in the butt stuff, he would have said something about it. So again, it's a T story. Um, she did say that Al was very dismissive of her, stalking claims. I can only imagine you faked a pregnancy with twins, robberies, and you got the man transferred because you faked some sexual stuff in his unit to his commanding officers. I can't imagine why Al has trouble with you and the truth. Makes no sense to me. Um, Notably, she does say that when she returned, Gannon told her that some scary, shady men had come by and talked to her, or talked to them about finding Leteshia. Tisa says that she grilled Gannon about, what did these people look like? What were they driving? Did they have accents? I mean, all the things that she could never explain about, oh, Eduardo, Quincy, Uncle Matt, the cartel. None of those identifiers that she could find, but she definitely needs Gannon to give, a photo fit ID of this particular group of shady people. Now, on a side note, I do believe that here she is trying to weave the story of wrecking Harley's Jeep in because her claim to her defense attorneys, as was brought up in Harley's testimony, is that she saw ghost of her dead first husband right about Nya while she was driving, and that caused her to wreck. Harley says that this was not one of the 84 stories that Tisha told her as to why she wrecked her Jeep, so she did not let the defense get away with saying ghost of dead husband caused car wreck. Now, at this time, Tisha claims that she is starting to feel very, very paranoid. She's to the point where she is taking alternate routes to her work. She is changing up her routine and things like that. I am oddly impressed with how she is weaving growing psychological things by adding, the auditory and visual hallucinations with the dead husband and the growing paranoia of a shadowy group that could be sort of a schizophrenic kind of hallmark, um, to her story as she goes. Like I said, I think Tisha is much smarter than we give her credit for, but she's also dumber than the experts, and she wouldn't know finesse if it hit her on the head. And we're going to go into where she claims that she read the DSM-5, well, she calls it the book, from front to back, and she meets all the criteria. So she went on a buffet of mental symptoms, I think, and it is fascinating how she is able to weave, kind of ham-fistedly, but she is able to weave sort of this growing sense of paranoia and kind of slip from reality, as she claims, with the evidence in this particular interview. Now, she doesn't do it well, it isn't crafted in a coherent way, but it is interesting to me that she is able, sort of on the fly, to again weave the evidence and this growing list of mental symptoms in while she is telling this particular story of her multiverse. Um, After she is done explaining that she is acting like MacGyver and, a super spy, and changing up her driving and her morning routines and everything to keep the shadowy mob away from her, she says she went so far as to call and invite Al's mother to Laney. I'm going to go with Lana's, the younger sisters. That poor girl, her name is butchered all the time. Uh, Now, she does claim that she has Al's mother come by so she will not be alone, but this makes no sense because she leaves with Albert when he's going on his annual training. But she does state that that was the reason that she had Al's mom stay, not really for the party, but because she was afraid to be alone. Um, she then kind of spouts off that she has gotten in trouble before with this particular police department for having false claims. I think this goes back to her pretending there was a squatter in the house. Like, lady, wear a low-cut shirt. There are easier ways to get your husband's attention. Some people do low-cut shirts, some people do fake robbery and squatters. I'm going to go ahead and tell you people, do the low-cut shirt. Don't do the false police report. Um, but she does kind of paint herself as the victim, like this totally was happening in her mind, and she was begging for help and no one was helping her against these people that were mad at her for the car wreck. Then she sort of just jumps and skips over the next several days, but really does want to hammer home that she is starting to be very paranoid and feels like she is slowly losing touch with reality. Again, I want to state that I don't think Al, if he had noticed these supposed breaks with reality, would have left. He did claim that he had flexibility for his annual training. Annual training is usually about 2 weeks. And I guess he was stating that he was able to change his training around, and he would have, I don't think, have left if she was showing outward signs of having a loose sense of reality. But again, this is a tea story, and she is claiming that she is losing touch with reality, but she's hiding it fairly well. She brings up the death of Kobe Bryant, and says that they are trying to have a fairly normal Sunday, and she is devastated about Kobe Bryant, but they are going to still try to go to church. She brings up this Michael the Archangel man and his presence either in her head, outside the door, or somewhere. She doesn't quite place where he is in this particular story, um, causes them not to go to church. As all archangels do, they keep you away from church. Make it make sense. Just make it make sense. He also has a business card because he and Quincy Brown had a 2-for-1 coupon. And like me, we love a frugal, fictitious person. um, After saying this, she kind of goes off and says, I have reviewed every piece of evidence in this case, and me and my team have pieced together through all of my yards and yards of lying liartoness the story that fits with the evidence, and really kind of brings home that this is sort of a collaborative. Again, this is T's report, so we don't have the lawyer's side. I'm guessing that the lawyers tried to make sense of the incoherent rambling and babbling that they heard coming out of T's mouth until it became like the wah, wah, wah thing from, Charlie Brown. So God bless those lawyers, and they got they got out of there. She switched them. But she does make it known that she and her lawyers have come up with a story according to her. Um, she goes on to explain that because they couldn't go to church, they decided to do a hike at Garden of the Gods. And everything was fairly normal getting there. They were on trail, but she started to hear a voice in her head saying to give the children to a Black or Hispanic family. And then it kind of goes into a rant. But again, it was this recording was on a freaking baked potato. So I couldn't really get it. It sounds like she went into a race relations kind of thing, but again, I only typed what I could hear and decipher. She then goes on to state that the mob is in cahoots with this Michael the Archangel guy. Uh, she then kind of says, all right, Gannon, had a stomach ache on the hike and he had an accident. And she really kind of goes on and on about Gannon having accidents and Gannon pooping. Lady, if you're a parent, parenting is like 90% poop. It just is. Get a newborn baby, it's 100% poop. You know, it floors me that a woman who has been a mother for years doesn't realize or gets upset the accidents happen. That's just a mindset that I find very foreign. And I can only imagine the just verbal abuse and, haranguing that she subjected Gannon to because he had an accident. Um, so that is one of the big things that I think really bothered me, and I'm sure it bothered a lot of other people. But getting back to the story, it was a fairly normal hike, but they did have to leave early because Gannon had an accident. Um, she claims that they went to Burger King, came home, kind of had a fairly normal night after that. I mean, this is prior to the candle accident. So she says, we came home, kids did night routine, thing like that. And then she claims that she kind of fell asleep or started dozing, either on the couch or in her bed. And she is awoken to the fire alarm. She states directly after that that the next 30 minutes are a blur. But directly after that, claims that she is in full-on protection mode. She is getting the dogs out, she is getting Lena out, she is getting Harley out. If you pay attention, when she says she's in protective mode, Gannon is never among the people that she lists that she needs to protect, and I find that very telling. Um, I believe that she did not like Gannon. She did not want to protect him, and um, that's my opinion. I think that she never considered Gannon as any of the children that she cared about. And it's very telling that every time she says something, it's about the girls. It's never about Gannon, unless she is trying to drum up some fake sympathy. So at least that's what I've observed. You guys tell me in the comments if I'm kind of seeing it wrong or you agree. She then says that she has gotten the dogs and the girls in the truck, and she picked the truck because the keys were laying out, and that's why they picked them up. She went back in to get Gannon or figure out where the fire is. She is not really quite clear as to why she is going in the basement, but that's kind of a tell to me also because she doesn't say, I have to go get Gannon. Gannon's still in the basement. She goes down the stairs twice without entering the basement, according to her testimony in this particular interview. Um, And I guess one of those two times she slips down the stairs and knocks the back of her head. But then at some point she is able to fully go down the stairs and get in the basement, and she sees a ring of fire around the couch. Gannon is asleep, and she uses his blanket at this particular point and in this particular timeline to smother the fire. Now, she claims to not remember like times or things of that nature in with this particular situation, the fire situation, but she is adamant that their ring camera will tell or will show the getting the kids out of the fire or getting the girls out of the fire, her coming back, getting Gannon out of the fire, to take their customary drive around the neighborhood while your house is on fire, as you do. Um, then T says fire is a big trigger for her, but they don't tend to delve into that. The psychiatrist, when she is questioned after the end of this entire thing, does go into saying, we don't dig deeper into trauma. We are not here to treat. We are simply here to test for competency. So even though T kind of alludes to this being a trigger, it's not really delved into a lot deeper. Um, Now, she claims that because she was so triggered and kind of fractured by this whole fire, that she does not remember the drive around the block or the text to Harley, but that they were very clear and detailed, those texts to Harley. Now, we went over that testimony with Harley and the texts, and they were as clear as mud. I it, I'm surprised that Harley could finally figure out what was going on because those texts were just no information but very demeaning if you didn't quite get what he was saying in the first place. So, gotta love T's personality. Um, she then goes on to state that she wanted everyone being Lana, her, and Harley, to sleep close to each other because the fire had triggered her kind of overprotective instincts. You know, she just wanted to make sure that all her little, family she cared about were together and safe and protected. She then mentions a friend named Guam. Yes, Guam, like the country, who will be able to fix both the couch and the carpet. Now, at this point, she says that along with the texts and the drive, she does not remember the candle video, that awful, horrible video that I never want to hear again, if I'm honest with you. That was just heartbreaking. And to hear her shush him, never have I wanted to backhand someone so badly, allegedly on Minecraft. But still, yeah, that was an awful video, but she claims to not even remember taking that. Let me go back here because I sort of fast through my notes. She then kind of goes to set up that she is having flashes of memories she does not get or she does not remember. And the next little bit is kind of fragmented. I wrote down exactly what she said as she said it, but again, it is warning you ahead of time. It is sort of fragmented, and you kind of feel like you're just jumping to thing to thing to thing, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. She then claims, right after she claims she doesn't remember taking the video, that she records everything. This woman has the screenshots, if you know what I'm saying. She claims that Gannon took responsibility for the fire and that the video is completely out of context. That she knew that Guam was going to be able to fix the couch, and we just somehow misinterpreted what was going on in that video. She claims that she and Gannon came up with a plan that they were going to stay home the next day, work with Guam to fix the couch and the flooring and run some errands. Then she claims that she has many blank spots of that night. She details kind of claiming that she hears the garage door open and shut. She's in a very hyper vigilant sort of protective mode. Now, she does not call this mode Maria yet in this interview, or at least this portion. She states that, she really didn't sleep. She was walking around the house, checking locks, checking doors, making sure there was not an intruder because deep in her gut, she just felt like someone was going to try to hurt her or the kids. She seems to indicate that while she is in one of these states, she doesn't remember that. That is when she texted her employer, and that the fire had triggered in her such a emotional state that she reverted to when she was 19 and her stepdad died. Hence the reason why she, in the text to her employer, said that her stepfather died in a car accident. She is claiming that while she's in and out of these sort of lucid states, she feels like she is 19, or at least I believe that is the thread that we are supposed to follow. She claims that, as she's going in and out and in and out, and Harley is kind of asking her what's going on, she says that she tells Harley she's worried about an intruder and everything, so, make sure that things are locked. She claims there should be also, of this night, ring footage of her walking outside in the front and backyard, kind of checking again, the fences, the locks, the gates. And then it jumps to her being naked in the garage. Now, thank the Lord and tiny baby Jesus that her version of naked is a bra and panties. She is in a bra and panties in the garage, according to her, with no real recollection of why she is there. And she is confused at that point because she locked the garage from the inside. Well, you can unlock it from the inside too, so you can get in the garage. But apparently, in that state, she was just confused. Now, she goes back to talking about protective mode, but then quickly segues into remembering Lana or Lainey brushing her hair in the morning, and that's kind of where she came out of it and started to at least be able to pretend to be a little bit normal for the morning. This is where she brings up Maria. She claims that Maria comes out and she will go ham to protect the people she loves. Again, noting she brings up Harley and Gannon's younger sister, but not Gannon in the people that Maria will protect. She jumps again to she is not sure if she was in the garage in her all-togethers, if it was a dream, but she claims that in one of the flashes she had her head matted with blood, and she claims that must be from the time that she fell down the stairs getting to the fire. Then she claims that she doesn't know if these are dreams or what they really happened, but they're very vivid in her mind that these things happened. But in the morning, she's at least lucid enough that she got the morning stuff done, and she checked Gannon's arms before they went on these errands, and she determined that the burns were fairly superficial and he didn't need to be seen by doctors. She then pivots to the extra phone in the dog food. Now, I guess that is a thing. A burner dog food phone must be spycraft. I don't know. KGB exclusive knowledge. She claims that she called in Gannon's absence from his school on the dog food burner phone, and that the police should be able to track that call. This point is where the stream is paused to highlight that this has all been in response to the simple question, tell us what happened to G, and that we are all trying not to barf about the thought of T naked on a Peloton. We needed that little break. She claims that she's continuing at this point to, even though she's kind of muddling through getting the kids ready, that she's still thinking a lot about her stepfather and having flashbacks from the garage. Um, Now, here's where things get a little confusing, and I had to re listen to it a couple of times. But she does say that Eduardo is now a gentleman that Guam has sent over to work on the carpet and couch. Now, it will get confusing because Eduardo will change from Eduardo to Edward to Edgar. Now, I believe that these are all the same person, at least in T's mind in this particular timeline, because they are all there with the express purpose to fix the carpet. However, if you feel like this, she's got three different people, tell me in the comments. I don't know. It's so very hard to interpret what she says because, again, the baked potato recording, and she just kind of mumbles and goes at about 9 bajillion speed level. So it really is hard to sometimes keep up with what she's saying when she goes kind of non-linear. Um, but now she says that Eduardo has been added to some of those flashbacks that she's having it in the garage. Um, She also states that she is not comfortable with Gannon staying home. Now, in previous tellings of the story, it's been, well, it was legal, but he, was sick and I didn't want to leave him home. Well, in this particular story, in this particular timeline, they are staying home, or he is not allowed to stay home because of the shady people from the vacation. She claims that she made Gannon bring his blanket and the switch. She ungrounded him from the switch for a little bit so she could go out and run these errands. They're going to go to either, well, I think it's Petco, but she interchanges that with PetSmart later on in this interview, and also claims that they took the truck that particular day because they were still going to pick up a bike for Al. So this is kind of an amalgamation of a couple different timelines that she's had. Now, she does bring up the footage of G getting into the vehicle, so she does want to make sure that we know that he did get in the vehicle. Now, she claims that Al did not answer any of her texts the night of the fire, which we know is not true, and that he didn't respond to her texts until the morning after, and she sent that kind of haunting picture of Gannon in bed. Um, he looks, it's just so haunting. Um, but she sent that in the morning, and she claims that she did not want to tell Al about the extent of the fire because Al tends to, in her words, just go off the deep end. T says, the morning's pretty normal up until they get to PetSmart. Note that this has always been Petco, but maybe it's kind of like me with Walgreens and CVS's. They're right across the street and I mix them up all the time. But at this point, when she is doing errands, she starts to notice multiple black cars and she believes that they are following them. Gannon still has his switch, so he's kind of just, according to Tisha, just curled up in the back seat playing his switch. He didn't want to go to school. His belly's hurting, and he's going to stay home and help with the carpet because he messed it up, according to T. Again, she decides to state that Gannon's burns, according to her, were not severe. Again, at this point, she really wants to make that very clear. She keeps bringing up that the videos from the Petco will show her continuously looking out the window and checking on Gannon because of the black cars, and she's confused because she took Al's truck, you know, ostensibly to get a bike, but I guess now she's claiming they also took Al's truck to avoid these stalkers. Um, she left her pet food phone at the pet shop, which is, just all sorts of layers of, well, ironic. Um, and then she again states that she questions Gannon in the back seat when he's curled up about what these mystery people looked like when they came, during the cruise. Tell me anything about that. She then jumps into, she's driving around in back roads because she's decided that they're going to kill two birds with one stone. She's going to meet this person about the bike, but she can also take Gannon to see Castle Rock Road. I guess there's a bunch of either castles or big houses along this road. I don't know. But this is also the road that the bloody board was found on. So she is really expertly weaving kind of pieces of the story together, expertly for her. But it is an attempt to get all that information to match the evidence, and I find it fascinating that she is able to do that kind of on the fly with as many stories as she has told, to keep at least the evidence straight, because I have a hard time doing it, and I'm just on the outside looking at all these different stories. So I can't imagine having all the stories in my head and trying to also weave in, well, I had blood on the baseboard and this is why this. So I find that very fascinating in sort of a very sad, very evil way. One second. Now, after talking about the going to kind of see this rural road and check out these castles and then not being able to find her way and having lost her phone at Petco, she jumps kind of immediately back into claiming that the car wreck with Harley's Jeep was deemed by insurance to not be her fault. This sort of train doesn't go with anything. I'm not sure why she threw it in here, but it seemed important to know that she was not responsible for this wreck at this time. She states that they were on County Line Road and looked around for these castles for a long time. She was claiming that, she didn't have her GPS, she didn't have her phones, they were making U-turns and, basically just getting hella lost in the middle of rural Colorado. Um, she does then claim that she saw a gentleman walking on the side of one of these rural roads that looked like her stepdad. It kind of goes spotty here with the recording, but she claims that she ran over the gentleman who looked like her stepfather. Then she's not sure if that ever really happened or she made it up, but um, she definitely remembers her stepfather getting run over at this point. Um, I did put a note in here that she is inelegantly, but at least competently to a point, weaving the information in with her story. Um, and she does go on to again reiterate that this is the story that she and her lawyers have come up with. These are the, I guess, known facts that they have pieced together with discovery and things like that. She claims at this point that she realizes that she is having a mental break, and she claims to park along the side of the road and kind of get weepy, hysterical, with Gannon in the back seat, just kind of having a full-on meltdown. She says that Gannon tries to comfort her and is getting a little kind of squeaked out because she's having this and just wants to kind of move forward to the rest of the day, like, get it together, lady. I don't want to be stuck out in the middle of Colorado with you having a breakdown. Um, Now, she says that she remembers driving the car back to the house. She brings up a non sequitur about Gannon claiming that there was a couple or one group of one or a couple kids in the neighborhood that were bullying Lana. And then she jumps back in to kind of, I was driving to the house and I don't remember. Then she cuts back to uh, Gannon and the, sister bully. They were fussing and kind of futzing with each other, causing a little bit of mischief in the neighborhood, just, stay away from my sister. Don't be mean to her. According to T, this drama is all just unfolding. Again, not really important or even relevant in this particular line of, what the hell is going on in this woman's mind. But I find it interesting that she finds it relevant to put in. Um, as a person that kind of has a lot of train of thought, talking, and nebulas of thought, I do wonder what triggered her to put that in there, but I'm not delving into Tisha's mind. That's just, I don't have the gloves or the Lysol. She does say that he and a group of kids, or him and this particular kid, she's not clear in anything. Um, but she did throw in that they were going around talking about Smarties and pretending they were doing drugs with the Smarties. So I'm assuming that they were either pretending they were pills or, crushing them up. And I don't, it's tea. It is a Tisha story that doesn't mean anything. Now, she claims that after running over fake dad and getting home, she tells Gannon to get the mail and do his laps. Apparently, according to Tisha, kids had to do laps when they came home from school to keep them off of electronics for forever. So if Gannon did the mail and his laps, then he would be able to get a $60 game at GameStop. And this was kind of unusual because usually they have, I think she was saying, a $20 or $40 limit if he's going to get something. So this was sort of a big thing to get the $60 game. She's really unclear about whether Gannon walked back home from the mailbox or she drove him home. But remember, in one of her many, many interviews, she said that she sent Lana out to get the mail because she wanted to protect her. So this doesn't make sense with that particular story, but it is what she says now. And I'm kind of going with what she is saying in this particular story. Now she goes into, they are in the house, and she says that as they got into the house, she found it unusual because I guess the ADT alarms had gone off for movement inside the house, but they are not sensitive enough to pick up the dogs. So she starts the story with being very worried that someone's in the house, but then kind of blows it off thinking it's Guam that sent Eduardo to fix the carpet and couch. So of course there's going to be movement. Um, and that she goes upstairs to work out and Gannon goes downstairs to either play on his Switch or do whatever, he's going to do after running all the sorts of errands and having tea break down. I'm sure he just, if true, wanted to run away, not deal with this woman for a while. Everyone needs a tea break. And speaking of tea, well, pop, we have the mug of the day. Some people just suck the nice right out of you. That is the fitting mug for tea. She just sucks any sort of nice out of you. She really does. This is where things kind of go to crazy 11 max mode. Tisha takes this opportunity to claim that everyone is wrong. The cops, the feds, us armchair detectives, we are all wrong. G or Gannon was not killed on the 27th. Whatever happened went down on the 28th. And it gets even weirder. She claims that she has watched the body cam of the officers initially coming in and kind of canvassing the house and looking at different things, and she says that nothing was out of place. And, at this point, she's watched the footage over and over, and she goes on to say that they were planning to have sushi for dinner, and Gannon didn't like sushi, so she was going to get him something else. But we are on the timeline of Gannon left to go play with a friend now. So she is kind of going with the story that everything happened according to that particular story of hers here. So she says that they were waiting for Gannon to come home for dinner, and that the Ring doorbell again will prove that she and everyone, when Gannon did not show up, were going out and trying to find him. She claims that she talked to someone, at least a neighbor in the neighborhood, when they were on this drive, asking if they had seen Gannon. And she was then talking about a YouTube time challenge, either channel or just a challenge, in which the players try to hide for the longest amount of time before being found. And she claims that she told the cops in the body cam footage that Gannon might be doing the time challenge, but to my knowledge, that is not on the body cams. Again, this is a T story, and a T story is a fake story. She gets kind of indignant at this point that the cops are trained to search houses, and they did not do a thorough job, because if they had done a thorough job, they would have realized that Gannon was hiding. And she states she's freaking out, and Albert calls her back, and she claims the police were in and out of the house at this point, searching for Gannon, setting up searches, even though at this point she had claimed he was a runaway. When this woman is just insane. So she says the cops come back a second time in the evening, and Tisha now says this is the point that she is getting scared, because Gannon's meds will start to wear off towards the later end of the day. And she then she stayed home because the police had told her that if, Gannon comes back, someone needs to be at the house and they'll search the neighborhood. This is the last thing that T emphatically states happened on January the 27th. Now, I had to listen to this a couple times because I wanted to make sure that I got the dates correct, because she goes next level bananas crazy with this next timeline. And she speaks, this has been about an hour of her just speaking nonstop, and then having these sort of very random kind of interjection comments that don't belong there. So this is where she starts to clarify that this is the event. The murder of Gannon happened on the morning of the 28th, not the evening of the 27th, like all the information sort of points to. We have got it all wrong. T knows what happened, and this is what happened. So this is her version of the events from the 28th. And here is where I kind of feel that she is marrying reality with this story. And I'll get to the points where I feel, and it might be my personal perception, but I feel there is some truth here. She claims that early, and She stated about 5, but it's still dark outside. She claims early that morning on the 28th, someone knocks on her bedroom window and she kind of gets up. She's again hyper vigilant, and Gannon is missing, so she is just on full on, protecting my house mode, intruder mode. She goes and she checks the window and she doesn't see anyone. Um, Everyone, the girls, are sleeping in the same bed for comfort because everyone's pretty stressed out about Gannon being missing. Um, Tisha states she must protect the girls. She states that, she's continuing to check the doors and locks. She doesn't see anyone. She even goes so far as to go out into the driveway and futz around with the cars, you know, and that the Ring doorbell should definitely show her at this point going in and out of the house, you know, just to back up her story. There's always recordings, according to her. She states she continues to hear loud noises coming from within the house, but it's really not clear if she goes to investigate. Um, and she wonders if they're coming from Edgar. Now, I believe that Edgar was formerly a Guardo, um, because he is there to fix the carpet. But I am trying to make sense of a T story, okay? So I'm doing my best. But I do believe that Edgar was formerly a Guardo. And that's a lot of where the confusion, I think, comes from, is she can't even keep his name straight. Now, I don't know if this is a deliberate attempt to show that she is completely out of touch with reality, or if this is just her not remembering all of her lies. So I think it honestly could be, half a dozen of one, six of the other, in my opinion. Whoever this person was, supposedly came over in the early morning hours to fix the carpet because he wanted to avoid the police. Um, you know, as ever, carpet people coming at 5 a.m. I wish, but no. Make it make sense, please. Um, she didn't see anyone. Again, she states she has this very deep ingrained feeling that someone is in the house, and she can't quite shake it. It's deep within her core that someone is in her house and people definitely want to murder her. And she's right now. T, you're finally right. You get a gold star. um, she makes a very big point to say that she doesn't have her gun on her, and her gun is in the car per the body cam footage of the police officers. Again, this is something that she states that she has gone over with her defense team and they have pointed it out or she noticed. So this is a concrete fact according to her. I haven't watched the body cam footage again. I will probably review that at some point when I figure out how to do all of this stuff, because I am a technological disaster. And my poor long-suffering husband has to help me, and God bless him. Back to the story though. So again, she has gone over a lot of these timelines, body cams, and different discovery evidence with her defense team. She states that, to her knowledge at this point on the 28th, Edgar, Lena, and Harley and herself are the only people in the house that she is aware of. And that Ty was on his way back. And she never again mentions Ty, but I put it in there because she said it. She again states that she goes up and down to the basement twice without going all the way in because she doesn't have her gun currently, so she's afraid to go down to the basement. Um, if my sons were in a basement and I was hearing noises and afraid of an intruder, weapon or not, I'm going down there and I'm mama bearing something. I'm not leaving my kid out there. So again, she is just a piece of work. Um, Edgar, however, does have one of their handguns for some reason, and they both go down to the basement. It's the buddy system. Edgar and her down in the basement. As she gets into the basement and looks into, I guess, Gannon's room, she sees a figure wearing a cape, a very tall figure. It's dark. She does not turn any lights on, according to her. It is a dark kind of area, and she notices this dark, scary figure in a cape, and she goes into full-on protective mode. Uh, she claims now that in a full-on Kill Bill ninja move, she takes the gun from Edgar and tries to shoot the person in the cape, but somehow when she's taking the gun from Edgar, she claims that she got shot. Now, at this point, she kind of uses her arms and indicates like a lower abdomen gut shot, but it will later become a leg shot. So, T story, what you gonna do? She claims that she was just, again, on high alert, after running over possible dead stepfather on the rural road. That had triggered some sort of hyper vigilant, hyper alert sort of state that really let Maria come out in a sort of violent way, according to her. She states that the person looked tall because as she's pieced together with her team, that Gannon was standing on top of his bed. She mistook the cover for a cape, and um, we kind of just needed a break here. I am almost sure that the attack happened down there, and I think she, in the coming sections, does mix some truth with all of the bullshit. And you may agree or disagree, tell me in the comments, but I do think that there is a lot of little nuggets of truth, little truthlets, if you will, um, that she sprinkles in, but they are haunting in this next thing. So I will say that they definitely gave me pause. So you might just need to kind of take it and give yourself a break, because this is already going to be a long video. This was a lot of notes, going into detail and trying to figure this out. But this section gets a bit rough, so I did want to warn you. And the stream even took a break at this point because this woman has just been rambling nonstop. At this time, T wants to tell the doctors that if she were in her right state of mind, if, she wasn't in this sort of hypervigilant pre-Maria mode, that she never would have hurt Gannon. She was not intentional. People need reasons to kill. That's a big thing for her. She feels like people need a reason to kill, and she had no reason to kill Gannon. And isn't that the truth, and the only truth that Tisha's ever told? She had no reason to kill this boy. She then completely goes into victim mode, and people are painting her as a monster, and they just don't understand. And if they would just listen, she never knew it was Gannon when she went into Maria mode. She said, now, it's hard to place whether this is before, in the middle, or directly after the attack on Gannon that she is portraying happening on the 28th, that Lana the younger sister woke up due to the noise, and she is still fighting, according to Leteshia. Leteshia is still fighting this caped man, but Lana walks in and is awoken by this noise. Then it immediately fast forwards to Leteshia stating that Lana is helping carry Gannon's battered and bloodied body up the stairs. That she says that Lana mentioned this in the state police forensic interview that they had Lana do. Nothing has been brought up about this, and I feel that if there was this bombshell sort of evidence that Lana did see Gannon severely injured, that regardless of the sort of trauma of putting Lana up on the stage, or on, not on the stage, on the witness stand, I feel like this would have been brought up unless Albert just said no. And honestly, I think that they don't need it. I don't think they need it. It's a dead horse. They have done such a good job tying her with all the evidence. I mean, there is all the evidence that this woman did it. There is no evidence of this woman's altars. You would think with the amount of evidence that she leaves around, she would have, you know, signings of Maria and little Lucia and Taylor. They would just be all around, but they're not. So again, I don't think the story is real, but the way she tells it is just chilling. And I think there are some parts that are real, and I will try to highlight those. So, after saying that the young sister was helping carry Gannon's body up the stairs, she also helped carry Gannon to Leteshia's Tiguan. Now, we are all confused by this point. Friday was just a marathon of crazy, and you just kind of get to a point where you zone out. And I think at this point, even David had taken off his, headphones. He was just all the way done, and the rest of us were 90% there. She then immediately contradicts herself and says that she and Lana take Gannon up the stairs, and at that moment, she still thinks Gannon is a random person in a cape, despite just saying that what having the younger sister carrying the body snapped her back to reality the breath before. I mean, this woman, God, someone has to have mercy on her. It's not going to be me. Tease states that she is all over the place screaming now, and that is what woke Lana. So she has 4 different stories in 4 different statements. But they are now again carrying Gannon up the stairs. He is barely able to speak, and she is vomiting all over because of the sight of blood. I think she saw Gannon barely able to speak. I think she did vomit probably because she saw the aftermath. I think none of the other stuff is true, but we know she saw Gannon just barely hanging on. And there is kind of just a slight change in her cadence when she's talking about the blood and vomiting. So it again is a tea story, and take it with a 900 pounds of salt, but something about it struck me that this was definitely something she had seen, and we know she did. She then jumps to they are in the garage, and she is blacking in and out of reality again. But she knows that, the carrying Gannon to the garage and the things and the blood did happen because she saw the vomit later, according to her. The next thing she says is she remembers being on the passenger side of the car and they, and I'm guessing they is her and Gannon and possibly Lena, are taking Gannon to the hospital, but she claims that she was in the passenger seat. So I don't know who's driving them, if she is, running to the um, the hospital. And she really doesn't make clear who it is. So she is either claiming to go to the hospital with the youngest daughter and Gannon and leaving Harley dead asleep, or she's leaving a traumatized little girl who just moved her brother's broken body to a car at home. I mean, neither of these scenarios make her look like any less of a monster. Add another shade of crazy because we have a level to up. Tisha has now been shot in the leg. The gut shot changed to a leg shot. Um, so it's all well that ends well. I wish. Don't you just wish that she got just a tenth of what she gave that child? And I'm sorry, I know I'm going off on a tangent here a little bit, and I'm reading her for absolute filth. And, if that turns you off, just in the comments, don't watch. Please don't. I am going to read this woman for absolute trash. I really am. She is absolute trash to me. She then claims that the bullet wound to her leg is why they find a small amount of her blood in the car. She kind of goes a little bit garbled, but she says she's not sure where the younger sister is now in this particular flashback, but she says she is at a Lego party. Okay. She then jumps forward in time and says that she wakes up from one of these sort of blackout periods, but she's confused because there's no palm trees on the side of the road. She claims to be on the side of the road somewhere, most likely where they found the bloody board, and we suspect that, she ditched a couple things or hid Gannon's body. We go into a tangent that she is confused about the palm trees because she is thinking that she is in South Carolina, and that particular hospital in South Carolina does have palm trees lining it. Again, the audio just stinks. Please, for the love of Cheetos and small baby llamas, can you guys get better audio equipment if you're gonna put these on as a record? Now, she does claim that she is very confused because the last thing she remembers, she was in the passenger seat, and now she is in the driver's seat and she has no memory of how she got from point A to point B. At this point, this is probably the most haunting thing, and I do believe that Leteshia heard this, whether in this context and most likely not in this context, but I definitely believe that this was the sound that Gannon made with when he passed away. And I say that because she kind of stops, and it's a different sort of feeling, and I don't really know how to explain it other than that, but I deeply believe that she heard the low, kind of growly, gaspy, keening sound that Gannon made as he took his last breath. And you feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but I definitely feel like that was maybe the one other honest thing that she said in this, that she remembers that. And that's a sort of sound that will stick with you in my experience. She compares the noise to what she heard when her grandmother died. Now she also says that she heard that in the garage before she left. She again heard this very labored, keening, growling breathing. Um, Either before she left or before she flashed back. Again, she is not very clear with timelines, and that's why I said it is just so hard to make any sense of this. Um, she continues to talk about being in and out of these blackouts and stating that it really um, was her and her defense team that came up with that Gannon probably took his last breath earlier that evening when she was out futzing with the cars. But that doesn't make sense. Um, and this is kind of where we stop and we all comment on her admission of hearing the last breath. And, you know, whether or not she's going to take the stand with this admission, really kind of out there, is something that David pretty much said he didn't think that she was going to get on the stand having this as a recorded kind of admission. Then Tisha kind of jumps back and says the younger sister was asking what's going on because according to Tisha now, both Lana and Harley were white as ghosts and saw something. It's really hard to parse out the truth, but I deeply believe that if either of the girls saw something, they would have been on the stand. And I don't think that Harley, as emotional as she was, would have been able to conceal that, and even conceal that in a forensic sort of interview with detectives, a really sort of grilling interview. I don't think she has kind of the mental willpower right now that she would, in that kind of situation, stick to not telling that she saw Gannon's body. So that's my opinion. Do with it what you will. It seems also very unlikely that this is real because if they saw Gannon's bloody and broken body, then the police would never have invested in the searches, the alerts, the pleas to the media. So it's another just disgusting level of detail that she brings in. She brings people into this story just in a horrific way. I mean, in all of my imaginings, having a little girl bring her brother's broken body to a car, I never. Just Tisha wins dick of the day. Just angry, angry, inappropriate child's toy of the day. She really is quite a dick, isn't she? But it's definitely at this point that we kind of call BS on T. Tisha then kind of goes into she is completely at this point in and out of reality, according to her. She talks about going through the motions of getting stuff. It feels worse than a nightmare. Quote, you can't compare it to a nightmare. It's worse than that. It is far from that, and I have gone through that. She talks about Gannon trying to talk to Leteshia and the younger sister when she was carrying him upstairs. I believe Gannon begged. I believe he tried to snap Tisha out of whatever, and it is just haunting. It really is. She says for the first time in this personality that in this recording that she starts going into different personalities. And this is kind of the first time that she brings up anyone other than Maria. And she doesn't really name them yet in this clip, but she definitely is now throwing that idea like spaghetti on the wall that, I definitely have these other things. She claims that, like, again, she's going in and out of this reality, but she is able to go to the airport. She brings up the fact that the airport should have footage of her meeting Al, them getting the rental car, them talking about different ways to search for Gannon. She states that, she knows Gannon is alive currently. When in and out of these flashbacks, her deep belief is that Gannon is a lie and whatever happened on the 28th was a dream. So um, it's the way she's trying to bring disassociation into this is very confusing and doesn't seem to follow what we saw on the documentary, but that is just what it is. She definitely claims that she doesn't remember anything and that the entire event is very garbled to her. And I think that that might be real. I think that whatever happened, she went too far and she killed him. But I do think that she just snapped and she doesn't remember. So that might be the only true thing of disassociation that I will give her. And even that's a limb too far sometimes for me. Ed Kerr and another man that she refuses to name um, said that that they came over to help remove Gannon's body. She claims from this point on that yes, she may have murdered him because she thought he was a man in a cape, but she never moved the body. And that is the hill she will die on. She did not do it. Edgar and this other man who she will not name took care of the body. Now, according to this, 9.8 virgin version of the story, need to switch that when I edit. Future editing me, remember this. She then goes on to really kind of the victim. They're talking about me. Everyone's claiming that something happened. Albert keeps saying that, hey, it must have been an accident. Please tell me. Please tell me. Then in the next breath, going back to, I didn't know it was Gannon because the cape. She also, again, reiterates that he was standing on top of the bed, so he looked much larger. She says something interesting. She's like, me or whoever I was attacked him, and that's the only reason. She thought he was an intruder. It sparked my interest enough for me to quote it, but it was fairly odd. Like, me or whoever I was is not, I think, a phrase that someone normally says. She claims that she was in an altered state, and she is kind of forestalling the questions that she feels like people will ask her when she comes out with this story of attacking Gannon because he's the robed man. So she claims that, you know, I was in an alert state. I didn't think to turn on the lights to check to see if that was Gannon. She was in protective mode. Maria don't care for no lights. She goes in and kicks ass. That's kind of what she's kind of throwing out there. Maria's going to protect me. I had no intent. I had no motive. She goes full Sarah Boone, like I was not intentional. And then she kind of gets emotional, but it is emotional for herself in that people think that she could hurt a child. And that just, that hurts her soul because she's not like that. And you hear a genuine quiver in her voice for that. And that's upsetting because the first time that she gets kind of a quiver in her voice is because people think she's a monster. Like, lady, you killed the kid. What do you want from us? We're not going to call you Mother Teresa. Then she abruptly stops the sad sobby thing and goes into super mom martyr mode. You know, I took care of the kids. I was being super mom and I had to drag people behind me. It is very obvious that she is alluding to Landon here, that, she is, had to take this, poor wretched mother who couldn't watch her kids and had all sorts of problems, and she had to deal with raising Landon's kids and kind of, getting Landon back on the straight and narrow, according to her, if you kind of catch, what she's saying. She goes that there's really no way that she felt that she could tell Landon or Al or anyone that Gannon was killed because she thought he was a man in the cape. And she kind of, on some level, I think, understands that this is a made up BS story. No one is going to believe it. No one's going to believe that you ran over your fake stepdad and then that puts you into some sort of fugue state where you killed your stepson because he was in a cape. It is just a bonkers story, and she knows people, deep down, she knows people aren't going to buy it. But this is more of a sympathy thing. I was afraid to tell them, and I couldn't tell them because this is a horrible, horrible burden to have to carry. It always goes back to Leteshia is just a victim. She then again switches abruptly, changing the subject of her not being the one that moved Gannon. And maybe she's claiming it was the altars. Then just as fast, she goes into again reminding the forensic psychologist, hey, I didn't mean to harm him. I had no intent. I didn't go down there to hit him or kill him. Y'all can't really get me. I had no intent. Full on double Sarah Boone. She went crazy in her words, not mine. She said she was crazy. And she said that this was when she had the full break from reality. She decided that she could raise Gannon from the dead, claiming that she even at that point like took his dead body to Burger King to get a Happy's Meal to see if he would undead himself for a toy. I am writing down what she says. I cannot make sense of what she says, and if I try, I will end up right next to her in the mental hospital. I just will. Um, she then goes back and revises her timeline yet again and claims that she took Gannon's dead body to the GameStop to get that $60 game. Um, and she had grown up watching televangelists, faith healing as a child. I think she called it Gospel Hour. I'm not quite sure. I didn't catch it. And she said, I caught the last little bit, something about $5 at Memorial. But if she was able to get to Florida or somewhere, that she might be able to raise Gannon from the dead. And that she was unable to tell if anything around her at this point, according to her, was reality. So, according to her, she's calling Al. She is dodging interviews. She is cleaning up evidence, but she has no idea what reality is. Sell it to someone else. Then the story gets crazier because there is an older, again unnamed man that told Tisha's mother that, Letitia's acting crazy. You can't bring up the dead. He was apparently there when they were packing things up at the house, but he was desperately trying to get help for Leteshia because he apparently was the only one that could see that she had had this just tremendous break. Um, And then she continues to state that, she was having these kind of outbursts and these losses of lucidity, but the brother's testimony said nothing about it. Again, I know we are not shocked that Leteshia is making shit up, but I wanted to point out that the brother does not corroborate any of this. She goes on to state that this unknown man takes Gannon at this point. And I guess they make plans, or it's implied that they plan to meet in Florida to do this whole, I don't know, voodoo Catholic Christian raising of the dead holy water bonanza. But she, Leteshia, did not move this, and she wants to be very clear about that. She wants it known that she did not move the body. This particular man, who will not be named, had him. She goes on then to explain that she should have looked at the colors of said cape, and then she would have known that it was Gannon because it was his bed sheet. She randomly kind of makes this spontaneous statement that, her stepdad or someone was going to hurt the kids. It doesn't really fit here, but again, I write things down as she says them. She really wants to bring the point home again that she did not have her gun on her, and this is a real sticking point. She doubles down at this point even and says she is afraid of guns. She doesn't like them. They scare her. I don't know if at this point it's even brought up if they went to like ranges or stuff, or I don't even think they went without, but she claims at this point that, she hates guns. She doesn't use them. She'd rather not ever deal with them. She does claim at this point that she is trying to figure out with everyone what went wrong, why Gannon died in this particular scenario that she's trying to sell him. She claims, well, I should have looked at the light, but, Maria comes out and Maria does damage. Maria doesn't wait. She doesn't, calculate the morality of it. She just eliminates threats because that's what you do when you're a Spanglish Russian asset. This woman's going to give me an aneurysm. Oh my gosh, even Inquirer has limits of the crazy that they'll tell you. They only bring Bat Boy up like a couple times a year. This is the part of the interview where Tisha states, quote, I read that book and I have all the factors. Again, it's a potato recording, so it's garbled at the end, but you can definitely hear when she says, I read that book and I have all the factors. That seems to me to be an admission of her studying the DSM-5, but Tisha, my dear, Cliff Notes are never the real book, and doctorates have a lot more training than just the DSM-5. So, better luck next time. She claims that she qualifies for the NGRI plea because she knows she did not in this period know right from wrong, but, and this is kind of odd if she didn't know right from wrong, she brings up self-defense. She is throwing spaghetti at the wall here. I don't know who she thinks is going to buy this whole she and man sent to do carpeting prior to cops coming followed her downstairs and she, killed the holy heck out of her son. Make it make sense. But this is now the 100% truth. 100% Tisha approved, truth beyond all truthiness. Lawful law of truth, okay? Everything happened on the 28th. The people that are telling you that everything happened on the 27th, that all the information and all of the evidence goes to the 27th, they are ignorant. Tisha has the truth, and it happened on the 28th. This is the first time the doctors interject, saving our sanity for 5 seconds. But they do ask Tisha a pertinent question. If she did not take Gannon's body to Florida, how did it get there? Well, T in true T fashion answers not the question. She goes into her family helping her pack because there are death threats, and Albert picked Landon, and he isn't being her husband and standing by her. So they are packing everything from the house. It is on body cam. Girl loves her recordings. It is on body cam, and they checked everything. She claims that she is in the mental state when her family are packing her belongings from the house, that she is either dreaming or being punked, that none of this is real. She states that another unnamed male, so I think we are up to 2 or 3 unnamed males, that she doesn't want to name, basically started advocating that, hey, you are all the sheets of crazy, ma'am. You need to take yourself to a hospital. You need to get treatment. This is not good. You are not sane right now. She claims that this man is, telling her family that she is just off her rocker. And she decides, between not knowing and knowing, or in and out of fugue states, she somehow decides, or undecides, or just ends up thinking that she will go to Florida to seek mental health treatment. They were going to Florida, in her words, to drop stuff off, then get to South Carolina. Now, she claims to have no She claims to have no memory of driving cross country, buying burner phones, going in and out of hotel rooms, scamming the hotels by making Harley go in first with the dogs and then her coming in later. Not a memory. Can't remember not a doggone thing. Did this all in a fugue state, according to her. Yeah, okay, T. She claimed that she could not pick up Gannon's body from these people, but her next best idea, when she did in fact get the body at some point, was to take Gannon's body to his grandparents' farm so that Al could not have control of the funeral details, because if it was up to Al, Landon would not be able to attend. Now, this woman has called Landon everything but a child of God, but now she is dead set on her being able to come to the funeral. Oh, this woman. She states again that she thought that they, at the farm, they, I'm guessing includes the grandparents and these unnamed men, could bring Gannon back to life. But one of the 2 males that shall not be named again claimed that she was going crazy, she needed treatment, and that's kind of where she left that. She states the unnamed man, and I guess, or men, somehow helped her avoid evidence being found in her rental car. So I have no clue what these statements mean. I mean, they were literally within seconds of each other, and A lot of the interview is like that. She will say something with concrete finality, and then in the next breath, say something that contradicts the shit out of it. So when I say that I spent 3 hours trying to make sense of this is the sense that you get. It doesn't make sense, but I did want to at least clarify that it wasn't a vampire or anything like that. I mean, it makes its own sort of sense if you're grading on a curve. Um, she states that, again, emphatically, she never had G's body in that moving van, that she and Harley got to Florida, and somehow these two men took this little boy's body on an airplane to meet them in Florida. She states that her lawyers have asked her repeatedly what was the plan. Just like meet in Florida and then drive Gannon's body to the farm to do this Lazarus sort of raising of the dead. Um, Now, she claims that at this point, again, she is off of reality. Reality is not in her zip code right now, and that she never planned anything. Then she says an honest statement, or at least has an honest kind of couple statement. She says that she never had a plan, that running has been a part of her life, her entire life. Running, according to her, makes things disappear. She states that, this was like the first time in her life that running has not worked. You killed a child. There's nowhere you can run, sweetheart. There's nowhere. We're gonna find you. You killed a child. Justice is coming. Then she goes on to explain that now she's not a professional, but she knows that she meets all the criteria for being found legally insane at the time of the crime because she was hallucinating, having episodes of, detachment from reality, and that has never happened to her before. She does admit that the man with the cape kind of story isn't easily believed, so that was part of the motivation to hide her crime. For the good, this woman stated, for the good of everyone, she was going to keep this story and just let everyone believe that Gannon was never going to be found. I have no words. She also states that these, moments of in and out of sanity was because she could not handle the guilt. Maybe, but you did it, and we've all heard those phone calls. Those phone calls and your, interview, all of that stuff are bricks in the fact that you were able to act completely rationally in hiding your crime. So going back and saying something else is just not going to cut it, I don't think. But I could be wrong. Tell me in the comments. She goes back to being super mom after this segue. That she helped him with his stomach issues and other basic parenting things, and she was the bestest mother ever. And how then she jumps to people are talking about the stab wounds. This is where she gets really creepy. She claims that she has studied the autopsy report to the point that she has memorized to the centimeter some of the stab wounds. This is where I begin to think that she enjoyed this, and these are, her reliving it for pleasure. Because she does go out of her way several times to claim that she has really taken in this autopsy and dissected it and kind of taken it in fully. And that is just so next level evil creepy to me. She does say the word salad, and that might be the level of, that's the moment of hilarity we needed after that. Um, she claims she's not the type of person that is going to go out of their way to try to get out of a crime, so she's trying to charm the forensic psychologists and trying to outsmart them by saying, look, never been in trouble. I am not going to deceive you. I am not going to try to use, any sort of tricks to get you to say I'm competent or not. Um, Normal people don't just wake up and kill, according to Leteshia. Then she goes back and kind of tries to tie up a loose end back. She kind of left back behind her. Um, and I think she realized she left this particular thread loose and she needed to come back and pull it forward. And that's what happens when you tell 84 stories. She says that the police missed Gannon, but she has so thoroughly looked at this body camera footage to realize that when they opened the clothes closet with the Christmas ornaments, that there was movement in that closet. And she goes kind of on a rant that the police didn't do a good job and they should have known what they were doing, and if they knew what they were doing, they would have found Gannon and nothing would have happened. She wouldn't have been forced to kill a caped man that turned out to be Gannon. Poor Leteshia. Then she goes back to how she doesn't blame Gannon. But how was she or Maria supposed to know that Gannon was in his bed? How are they not supposed to know? Or how are they supposed to know that Gannon, was back in his room after hiding? Maria doesn't think about those things. And then she does one of these deals, or she rubs her snot in her hair. If that's why it's so greasy, I don't want to know. But I had that in my brain and I have to share with you. We're all suffering together. Then she starts crying, and I can't tell if it's real or not. Nothing about this woman is real. She goes into, again, wanting to be able to tell Landon the truth about what happened. T really wants the interviewer to know that even the FBI says that, look, she is not a criminal. She doesn't have any background. She is smart. She has a doctorate from DeVry. I'm joking. I think it's Liberty or some college, or she applied online. I don't know this woman. She claims that, she tries to look more into her flashback and attempts to piece things together, going back to emphatically saying that people don't just wake up and murder. And oddly, she throws out that women are more likely to use poison. Um, she shifts back into not starting that day thinking that she ran over her stepfather. So again, it goes back to, if she had not been thinking about her stepfather, then she might not have been vulnerable to going into Maria mode, is what I gathered from that. T again went on to full on victim mode. Like, don't forget that the car accident mob was stalking her, and now she's upset that the cops are claiming that she sent Harley out for cleaning supplies. But that's not true, because they only got carpet cleaner and bubble gum, and you can see the receipt and she's not lying. She's got those screenshots. I have never in I would love the confidence she has in her lies, like just 1/10 of the confidence she has in her lies about anything in my life. I would be the president of the United States. There would be no stopping me. It kills me. At this point, the female doctor has decided that she needs no more therapy for this day, or that they need to go take a smoke break or take a shot of whiskey, uh, and that they're stopping there. Um, Tisha, of course, doesn't hear the word stop until she's again made the point that she is not the person to try to game the system, and that the children, when they were in her care, and the kids that she taught, never show sign of abuse. She refuses to kind of get the point that they're wrapping things up until she completely states that she's a rule follower. She's been a model citizen. I mean, she has been a model prisoner at the jail. And she second time states that she has read that book cover to cover, and she knows right, or she knows she was not able to tell right from wrong. I'm still not sure if, oh, and she's still not sure if Gannon was alive or dead on the day. She can't figure out, basically, she can't figure out the timeline with her memories. These are all things that she and her defense lawyers, according to her, have cooked up. And then, thank the tiny baby Jesus, we are done with this particular clip. Now I'm going to start editing, so pray for my computer and all this stuff. And give me some feedback. I'm new at this. I hope you guys liked it. I found it to be very enlightening to be able to go back and kind of take notes minute by minute, because you can see how much she switches things and then throws in the truth there to make sure it matches the evidence. I find that deeply fascinating that she is able to do that. That being said, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you guys again soon.